Michelle Anderson, the founder of Clarinet Mentors, and today I want to show you how you can do vibrato on the clarinet and also where you might want to use that. Many instruments and many singers use vibrato as a natural part of music, and basically vibrato is a variation in the pitch and the speed of the sound. So instead of a steady tone, ba, vibrato would have more of a ba, wow, wow, wow. Now it's very slow motion what I just demonstrated. In actual fact, it goes much faster. But it's pretty easy to learn how to do it on the clarinet. And there are two common ways that instrumentalists do vibrato. One is with changes in their airspeed. So as they're blowing, they fluctuate the airspeed. On a reed instrument like the clarinet, the more common way is actually to do it with your jaw and your embouchure. And what that would basically look like is loosening your jaw a little bit, dropping it down while you play, and that would make the pitch go down. So the way I recommend you experiment with this initially is to think of a steady pulse and do super slow motion vibrato. So basically, here's what I'm going to be doing. I'll have my clarinet in my mouth, and I'm going to imagine that I'm saying wah, 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 and that when I say wah, my jaw drops. Now, one of the things you'll experiment with is how much to move your jaw. The more you drop your jaw, the bigger the fluctuation in the sound. And a fun thing about vibrato is that sometimes we might want a very small fluctuation, meaning we're not going to move our jaw much. Other times we might move a lot. So here's what it sounds like if I move my jaw quite a bit. And I'm going to give myself a pulse to play along with here. So I'm going wah, wah. Now that was an extreme amount that I was moving. If I were to do that at a normal speed, it would sound like quite an extreme vibrato. That's a little bit too shaky for my taste, but sometimes learning something in an exaggerated way is a way to help us learn it. So initially, that might be a good exercise, just very slow motion, lots of movement to kind of get the feel for what you want to do. Then we want to soften that a little bit and make our movement not quite so strong. So if I think of moving it just a little bit, but perhaps still in slow motion, I would get something like this. And of course, a handy tool for that might just be to take a metronome and have the metronome playing, so you don't have to stand there and snap your fingers, although you'd look kind of cool if you did. So a metronome is helpful. One of the things we do on a practice is having our wahs be consistent with each other to match each other. So if I'm going for a small vibrato, then I'm doing the same amount of small. If I'm going for a big one, then I'm doing the same amount of big, at least initially when we're first teaching ourselves how to do it. So I would set the metronome to a fairly slow pace, perhaps something like 60, do quarter notes, 1 per beat, and then I might try and do 2 per beat. So I'm going to double my speed. Wow, 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 wow. This is still slower than I would play with vibrato, but it helps me teach my jaw how to do it. When that starts to feel good, I would try triplets. Wah, 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 wah. Then I could try and do 16th notes. Wow, 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 wow. Basically, keeping my metronome going. And then I could turn the speed a little bit faster. Now, that's a really good exercise that you could do at home over the course of a week or two, where you have a gentle slow motion exercise to teach your jaw how to do it. Once you start to get more comfortable with it, when we actually perform with vibrato, we're going to experiment with not only the speed of the vibrato, but also the amplitude, how big we make the vibrato. Vibrato in clarinet playing is really common in jazz music. In fact, any of the great jazz players, if you listen to a Benny Goodman or an Artie Shaw or any of the great players, they use vibrato just as a matter of fact, much like saxophone players do. And given that the saxophone and clarinet mouthpieces are so similar, it really is the same kind of technique that we're looking for. A lot of folk music uses vibrato just as a standard thing. A lot of klezmer music features vibrato. So it's just a little more controversial in the classical clarinet world. There's kind of been a tradition of the clarinet being the one wind instrument in the orchestra that virtually never uses vibrato within the orchestra. And the clarinet tone all by itself in a pure classical form can be quite beautiful. So there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a useful skill to learn. But there may be times where you're playing music where you do want to do vibrato. And in fact, some classical players do experiment with it, usually when they're soloists or in a small chamber group, just because there's still this tradition of not doing it so much in a mainstream orchestra. Someone like Richard Stoltzman, who plays classical music beautifully, does use vibrato regularly, and he knows how to use it really, really well. So if you're interested in some more classical music and experimenting with it, you might want to listen to some of his recordings and just notice where he speeds the vibrato up, where he slows it down. Sometimes we speed it up or slow it down to help change the color of the music. So in just whatever little improvising I was just doing there, at times I didn't use much vibrato, and at times as I got louder, wah, 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 I also increased the speed of my vibrato. Now I've heard other people slow down their vibrato as they get louder to increase in intensity, and it's really fun to experiment with. And really, you need to listen to the masters for that. Listen to your favorite jazz clarinetists and just really pay attention now that your ear knows what to listen to what they do and how they do it, and then you can start experimenting with those things on your own. But I do really think just learning it, very slow motion, as I just said, is a great way to teach your embouchure and your jaw how to make the vibrato happen, and then you can have fun experimenting with it. That's all. Short, simple video for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I have an invitation for you. 2 invitations. One is that I love hearing from you. So if you have any comments or your own observations about vibrato and how you use it, or great inspirations you have in the clarinet world who use vibrato really well, add your comments in the comments box below this video. I do go through there at least once a week and I respond to the comments that you leave for me, and I enjoy hearing from you. And secondly, I invite you to join my Clarinet Mentors community. It's totally free. You go to www.learnclarinetnow.com, and I have a newsletter I send out every couple weeks, and in it I include a video just like today's where I teach you something that I think you might enjoy learning about the clarinet. But aside from that, I let you know about special clarinet events, maybe recordings, publications, music, gadgets, all sorts of things that I know interest clarinet players all over the world, and I want you to be a part of it. As I said, it's free to join. You can unjoin at any time if it's not a good fit, but I invite you to join me there. I'd love to see you. Thanks for watching today's video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.